Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun, yeah.
So, Colin, what's the real early analysis on Ben and Gabe? Were there other names that were being thrown around during this decision making process? And like, yeah, what do you think is the strategy, or what sense do you have of why that decision was made, and how involved were you in that decision as well? Like, is this something that you and Ben are talking about? Like, hey, I think Gabe would work great for your game, or I think you should play with X, Y, or Z player. Give us a little context on that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I we didn't have that conversation in terms of, hey, who do you think I would play well with? But I do know how Ben likes to approach this more generally. So if you think back to when he played with Matt Wright, at that point he selected Matt in part because he was very good, but also because he wanted to take out the other person in the field that he struggled against. So Matt matched up in a certain way against Ben that at times could bother him. So in the past year, year and a half, Gabe has developed a game that tends to bother Ben. And there are certain people that match up well against certain players. And if you take the other best player against yourself out of the draw by making him your partner, that benefits you in a certain way. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't also want to play with Gabe, because Gabe has a skill set that is very good and very suited to playing with Ben. It's going to be a very different skill set than the one that I bring to the table. Gabe approaches the game differently in terms of how much he likes to attack, how much court he takes, and so forth. So that could work very, very well, or there could be some growing pains. So I would imagine teams are going to test that middle ball quite a bit, and I also think they're probably going to play Ben's corner quite a bit, similar to what they've done against me and Ben, because Ben's best attack is his backhand out of the air. But if you can keep it on the ground to his corner, his two-hander off the bounce, certainly there's a threat there, but it's maybe not the threat that it is on with some other players. And I feel like Gabe's offense from the right side with Ben's cleanup in the middle could be quite bothersome to a lot of teams. Not that people won't try that as well, but I think that most teams will probably approach it, play to Ben's corner, play some middle ball, see if you can get them to run into each other. And there's always going to be some growing pains no matter who you play with and no matter how good they are. I think that they'll very quickly figure out how they can play well together. And certainly there's a lot of very dangerous offense all over the court. But you're also playing against teams that are looking to exploit any sort of weakness any way they can. So that would be my initial analysis on the Gabe and Ben partnership. But that's not to say he's only going to be playing with Gabe, because this next tournament that he's playing, with the cancellation of California, of course, is Tucson, and he's playing with Hayden in that one. So that's yet another aggressive right side player that has a slightly different skill set than Gabe, that I think will probably result in a similar strategy from some of the other teams. So I'm very curious to see how that all integrates, and it could be an overwhelming success from the start, or like I said, there could be some growing pains. So I'm interested to see, as everyone else is, and I think that the skill sets will lend themselves to Ben conserving energy, which I think was another part of the decision on playing with some of these players, because Ben realizes if I'm going to compete in all three events, singles specifically, it's very taxing on the body. And if you have a partner that can take more court on a day where maybe you're struggling a little bit physically, my skill set did not lend itself very well to do that, because for a long time we didn't do that. It wasn't necessary. But if Ben goes to somebody like Gabe or Hayden and says, look, I only have 40% in the tank today. Can you take a little bit more court? I think their skill sets really lend themselves to helping him more. So with that, I think that you might see his results in singles benefit in a way because he has less responsibility.
Right. Okay. So Donald was talking about how he found Proton. It fit his game, and he hasn't looked back since. I also play with Proton. Other pros are Andre Descu, Megan Dazan. And I think the question is, like, have you actually tried one of these things yet? I think the recurring theme is, if you pick up one of these and you play with it, it's going to be hard to go back to any other paddle. So I've been playing with it. I think we were just talking about it with Donald. I've been playing with it since that would have been like late June. And I've been using the same one. So these things are like super durable. They hold up, they maintain their spin. And it's just a good balance of like touch, spin, power, which is good for somebody who is very technically unsound, like myself. Um, they also just released their new Series 4 Project Roadrunner. It's made with aerospace grade carbon fiber and exposed Kevlar for sustained spin. This lightweight edgeless paddle features a hybrid core that delivers a soft touch when you want it and power when you need it. As I said, super durable, stays rough for consistent spin even after thousands of hits, which I can attest to. Get yours now and save $25 with our code the Dink exclusively at pickleballcentral.com. So that's code the Dink, all caps, one word. 25 bucks off, pickleballcentral.com.
All the talk so far has been about obviously Ben playing with Gabe, but who's Colin playing with in 2025?
Well, so I have a variety of partners lined up for the first several here. Going to Australia next week, and in that PPA tournament, I'm going to play with throwback Jay DeVilliers. We actually run
Oh,
the
okay.
same MLP team. I think we played you and Tyson Zane in our first ever match together in that
Oh
original MLP at
yeah.
Dreamland,
Yeah,
on that one
yeah.
court at Dreamland with the crazy shadows. And Jay and I are going to run it back, and it'll be a nice little OG reunion. We're going to be the Lions again. That was the original name of the MLP team that we were on. After that, when I get home, I have a couple with Noe Cliff and a couple with James Ignatowicz. Noe had a great run in singles last year. He had a great run this past week in the Masters, getting a good win in men's doubles. So I really like his game. I think he's an up and comer. And of course, James, one of the best mixed players in the past year and a half. And I still think that he's a great player in men's. I think he's underachieved a little bit. And with the right partner, I think he could do very, very well.
Are you gonna kind of like take some of these guys under your wing a little bit? Like, no, real question. Obviously, like Noe is incredibly talented, and he hasn't had breakthrough results. He's done really well at his level, right? They were I believe the winners of MLP Challenger, but to my knowledge, he hasn't medaled in a PPA doubles event yet. Right? Like, are you going to show him how to get to the next level? Are you going to try and like get the most out of James? Because I think James has probably been, respectfully, one of the biggest disappointments of the 2024 season. Of just like, here's a guy with all the talent in the world. He has every single shot, but for whatever reason can't put it all together. And on the flip side, I feel like you're somebody who is very malleable in building a team game with Ben, and you've gotten the most out of, or a ton out of your own game. You maximize your own ability with a partner. So how much are you like taking some of these newcomers under your wing? Because I know you do a ton of coaching with players on tour and whatnot as well.
Yeah, it's something that I have a lot of interest in, and certainly been working with Tina Pisnik for about a year and a half now, and started with Etta Wright last year. So I enjoy working with top professional players because you can teach them so much in such a short amount of time. And there's kind of been, you might say, a monopoly on a lot of the highest level knowledge simply because the top players get to the deep parts of the tournament all the time. So you kind of accumulate this monopoly of experience where if you look at somebody like Annalise, she's in the final of all three events over and over for years on end. Surely at some point you're going to discover certain things that other people wouldn't discover when you play at that level for such a long time. So I feel like I can shed light on certain things. And certainly with the new partners, I think that it'll be interesting to me and something that will be completely different than the relationship that I've had with Ben as my partner, to where I was always giving him different ideas and so forth. But a lot of times that was on the training court. And not that it won't be on the training court with some of these other guys, but I feel like controlling the rhythm of a match can be something that I could help guide some guys through that are a little bit more raw. But that's never something that I had to do with Ben, obviously. So I think that presents a new challenge and certainly interesting possibilities. And that's yet another thing that I think will keep it fresh for me this coming year. You go back to these same tournaments year after year, and it can feel like deja vu. And I think that this next year is going to feel the most different for obvious reasons. And I think that can be a good thing, and certainly have some other off-court endeavors that are exciting to me. So I would really like to approach 2025 as the year of many new things and really leaning into what I do well and what I enjoy.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had fun.